Hello.
My camera has me frozen in time, but it's okay. I think I've got to.
It's okay. You can turn it off if the connection is bad. This is what we did in another session where the connection was bad, and so the
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Greatly.
Okay, good. If you can hear me okay, that's good.
Okay, so we are going to start this 9th session, communication themes, poster conference session with discussion in interaction. So we have already promoted a lot of times this Padlet link that the Professor Michael Altamirano has created. So Michael Altamirano, Professor, King Graduate School, Monroe College, USA, Vice President of Strategic Management and Communication Institute, Communication Institute of Greece, and we might start. And you are the leader here, Michael. So I will leave you the time and how you would like for the authors of the poster to maybe reply to questions or.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the poster participants who are here. And I just want you to know that poster presentations, they allow a different way of communicating our research to the audiences. This is a way of communicating through perception as well as concisely through explanation, and it's just a different way of doing it, and I welcome all of you. Before I get started, I want to apologize to Begum. I noticed that I wrote the wrong question for you in your area, but that's okay. I wrote down the questions and we can discuss it, which I'm sure you're not going to have a problem talking about, and it's about the citizen journalism in your country. What I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce the participants, and I would like to allow them the opportunity to speak for about 5 minutes or so and tell us what the essence of their research is, and maybe to discuss some of the more interesting points of their research, and then we'll get into some of the comments and questions that people have posted. I would like to start out with a topic that I found fascinating, and that's religious diversity in the workplace and in regards to a European approach. And I found this interesting because diversity is a very hot topic in the United States, North America, and it's one that's constantly in discussion, constantly in the news. And reading a different perspective, if we can open that up, Margarita, highlight
the first one. I will try. I don't promise this will work, but I.
It's going to work.
Can you see it?
Because yes, I can see. It's going to work, and it's okay. Placido, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Well, I want to introduce your topic, and I want to give you a few minutes to tell us about it, discuss it, and we can talk about some of the comments and the questions that you received. So the research is Religious Diversity in the Workplace for a European Approach, written by Placido Antonio San Giorgio.
Yeah, thank you. So,
your sound, Antonio, is a little bit too loud. Try to a little bit so we are able to understand what you are saying.
okay. So in recent years in Europe, a new debate has opened on the issue of religious diversity in the workplace. In fact, there are many questions asked if it is a subject worthy of considerable attention, and what are the limits encountered in empirical research. In the first place, it emerged that the various European states approach the question differently, both for different immigration history of the countries, for the different territorial policy, and for their different role that religion assumed in society. Studies.
Can you reduce a little bit the sound? It's too loud.
Okay, I try.
But okay, we can reduce it as well, so it's okay, sorry.
So, studies on the theme of diversity management and on the theme of religious diversity in particular present some difficulties that we consider a strictly personal topic that will refer to a radically secular interpretation of labor policies that we think of realizing ourselves as professional and put this before being believers. But it is that modern society also exhibit power structures that do not always honor the manifestation of the faith without risking real stigmatization and discrimination. So, this contribution intends to examine the most recent contribution on the theme of religious diversity in the workplace in Europe in a scientific debate, compare them and investigate some of the perspectives and difficulties encountered by two who do research in the field. In particular, we have the examples of France, Germany, and Italy, countries with a different immigration tradition and a different history of integration, starting from the theme of work. It emerged that the different approach appears right from the terminological question, as the term religion presents an articulate range of meanings that it is not always easy to classify in relation to working context. The goal is to offer food for those who, and not only at a managerial level, want to deal with the broader theme of inclusion and well-being in the workplace. So, thank you.
Thank you, Placido. I appreciate that. And yes, it sounded a little bit loud because I think it's probably a connection issue. So it's coming in a little bit harsh, but we understood the majority of what you were speaking about, Placido. I just wanted to read to you, well, I wanted to go over your poster session and let you know that the average rating for your poster was 4.7. And you did have a comment, and I also posted a question for you that I hope that you can answer and share with us. But the first comment is from Begum, and she wrote, religious diversity is really important as long as no specific religion dominates another, and they can all coexist peacefully in the workplace. And the question that I wrote for you, Placido, is, diversity, it's an important and interesting topic, like I mentioned before. Why did you choose to research on religious diversity in particular in the workplace? And can you describe diversity in the workplace in Italy at the moment?
So thank you for this question. And the first is according to Lionel Honoré, religion in workplace is the place that religion has in society. And so, in question number 2 is in Italy we have a new tradition of inclusion. While Italy is a country of new immigration, we don't have the history of France or German in the last part of 1900 in immigration. So in Italy we have two different history of immigration in the workplace. The first one is in north part, and the second one is in south. So in north part, the immigration have a little bit a new part in debate of management. So we have a 4-point view see these new phenomena. The first one is that managers regulate religious holidays and a weekly day of rest. The second is time, spaces, and method of prayer in workplace. Third is the food from company canteen, food selection, fasting times and period. And the fourth is religious dress and employer interest. So this is the point of observation that we use in this research to compare countries of recent immigration have a consolidated history of immigration like France and Germany. So, thank you.
Thank you, Placido. Thank you very much. And we also had another comment that was posted by our friend Louis a little while ago, and he wrote, the French society has a very opinion on religion since 1905 with the separation of church and state, even on political matters today, mostly because of the incapacity to coordinate the coexistence of religion. For example, the rise of Islam, and I'm assuming that Louis meant the rise of Islam in France at the moment.
Yeah. If I can add more information. So yeah,
Sure, please.
Since 1905 with the separation, I think it was actually in 1901 with the separation of the church and the state. There's been many struggles from the state on, I must say, controlling religion, and I think the case of Islam is one of the prime example, because in France, we want to control the religion. We want to create some kind of a, let's say, a syncretic religion. When we talk about Islam, for example, in France, we don't say the Islam in France, we say the Islam from France. So there's a tendency from the government to always have a means to control religion, because they have not the capacity to let the value of the religion to be embedded whatever the people want to be, I don't know, Christian or Muslim. And I think your subject, Placido, is really interesting, because we've seen in France, there's a law that have been voted, I think 2 weeks ago, on separatism. So when they talk about separatism, it's basically the incapacity for a citizen to show any religious attachment, whether it would be physical, like I don't know, necklace or any physical artifact, or any let's say consensual value of their religion. For example, in discussion, if I somehow talk about my religion with the colleague, I will be perceived as a separatist. And they actually voted this law 2 weeks ago because mainly they can't, I mean, they try so many years to create some kind of a Islam religion from the France, but since they can't actually do this type of syncretic religion, they decided to just uh, uh, control other religion that still exists in France. So your subject is pretty much interesting, and I think we can have your opinion maybe on Italy or Germany when it comes to religion attachment in workplace. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you again, Placido. I really appreciate it. And if we have time before our session ends, maybe we can talk a little bit more, and I can give you my perspectives on how it is in the United States. But I don't want to take attention away from our other participants. So right now, I'd like to talk about the second poster from the left, the local people's willingness to participate in ecotourism developed in Mangrove conservation area, a case for East Kalimantan, Indonesia. And this was written by Hikmah Tahir. And I found this very interesting because of the subject of ecotourism, which I didn't know much about, but it was interesting to read your research and read about what you wrote about. And I just want you to know that your average rating was also 4.5, and that is very good. And I do have a question for you, Hikmah. And do locals in Indonesia, did you determine, do they have a willingness to participate in ecotourism? And the other question is, has ecotourism grown in Indonesia? How does it compare with other countries or maybe other islands in the area that you may be aware of?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, it's an honor to be able to participate in the poster presentation. Thank you, Michael.
It's our pleasure.
And thank you for Margarita as well, first of all. We see you again, happy to see you again. Yes, for the first question, do local people have a WTP in ecotourism? Based on my finding, I found that in my research site, this is, if you familiar with Indonesia and Borneo Island, so this is the location of my study. I found that yes, dominantly local people there have a willingness to participate in ecotourism because they are aware of the benefit that they can get from their participation or from their support towards the ecotourism development in their inhabitation. So yeah, that's for the case of my study in East Kalimantan. And then for the second question is that what is ecotourism? Yes, if it is referred to the mangrove-based ecotourism development, right now in the in Southeast Asian countries, which is Indonesia, including in it, the government tried to develop mangrove forest area to be the ecotourism destination, and I think it's quite new to that the government tried to encourage. So it's still ongoing right now in especially in Indonesia. So it's still developing PASA as far as I know. And then that's why there's still a lot of homework to do to develop ecotourism, especially mangrove-based ecotourism in Indonesia. And that's why I also want to contribute to study about this issue. And then the third question you asked about how this ecotourism in Indonesia compared to other countries. I think based on my literature review that I have conducted, I see that Indonesia is still at the beginning phase for encouraging, encouraging this issue. But many literature I read, Thailand is the first, is the first country that developed as well. It's a mangrove forest area to be the destination for tourists, not only for local, but also for international tourists. So yeah, that's all I can answer so far from your questions.
Thank you,
Hopefully-
Hikmah. I appreciate it. And what I want to say also is that, a lot of times, research is often dominated on hot button topics such as politics and things like diversity, religion, and things of that matter. And to read a research paper on a subject that I know very little about, and to hear how important ecotourism is to your part of the world, I found very interesting and refreshing. And I just wanted to congratulate you on picking a relevant topic for where you're from. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
There is Luis that
Yeah.
raised the hand.
I have
Okay.
a question. I just have a question. So Hikmah, you're actually in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So what about
good evening from
okay? So what about ecotourism in Japan, considering the value on everything surrounding ecology? Because I'm also a bit of a Japanologist because I study in Japan and I live in Japan as well. So what about ecotourism in Japan, and how can you compare ecotourism in Japan and Indonesia?
Okay. Wow. That's a tough question. Thank you for questioning.
Try to
It's interesting. I
try to
don't
use your camera. There is a bad connection. If you turn off your camera, maybe we will be able to hear you
okay.
better.
Okay. Hello. Is it clear?
Now we listen to you clearly. Yes.
It's a little clearer.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I continue. It's honestly, I rarely found a study about ecotourism if it is located in Japan, and so right now I cannot compare ecotourism that developed in Japan with Indonesia right now. Maybe next study will be focused on this, because ecotourism in here I more narrow to the mangrove forest based ecotourism. So far I know that Japan doesn't have some mangrove forests, and then it's not a part of promotion of the tourism in Japan. So maybe it's a little bit hard to compare, because it's identified, mangrove based ecotourism is identified in the tropical countries. So yeah, maybe that's my answer for your question.
Yeah, you're right. They do not have mangrove in Japan. They're still trying to figure solution in order to increase deforestation in the country, because they spent many years, reducing forests in the country. And I'm saying this because I think 8 years ago I was part of the project in Tokyo. It was actually a marketing project when we tried to create some green places up to the skyscrapers of the skyscrapers, sorry, or the on the Tokyo city, and we try to locate the highest building of Tokyo, and we try to convince the government. Actually, it was the city ward of Tokyo to create some green places into the top of this building in order to increase deforestation first, and also to encourage the aging population to being reduced. And maybe I can try to orient you to go to the study in Chuo Daigaku, Chuo University. There's a department in ecology, I think, and they try to develop a study on everything surrounding ecotourism.
Okay. Thank you for your suggestions.
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again for that lovely discussion on your topic, Hikmah. Now we're going to go to another topic that I found fascinating, and that was the topic of citizen journalism in Turkey that was written by Dr. Begum Borak. And Dr. Borak, I'd like to give you a few minutes to discuss your topic of citizen journalism in Turkey, and then we'll get into comments and discussion on your poster session.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Margarita, and thank you, Michael, and Dr. Altamirano and the other participants here. Sorry for this. Poster seems a little bit, I mean, super, not very detailed as my colleagues, as the other presentations, because I was very unfamiliar with Canvas, so I'll try to compensate the shortcomings of the poster during the presentation right now. First of all, before going to the topic, I would like to provide a brief historical overview about the concept of citizen journalism. Then I will briefly cover what citizen journalism means, and then I'm gonna address the citizen journalism in Turkish context. We know that citizen journalism is not a new phenomena. In America, it dates back to the birth of the United States, when patriots printed pamphlets explaining why they supported the colonies' independence from Britain. One of the most famous of those citizen journalists was Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine wrote almost a 50-page long pamphlet called Common Sense, and in this pamphlet he outlined why the colonies should overthrow British rule. We can say that such publications were the first examples of citizen journalism activities informing public opinion. Also, why citizen journalism has been on the rise recently. We know that in 2011 there was a movement called Occupy Wall Street, and here we saw the roles of citizen journalists, and they inspired protests in Los Angeles, Washington, Chicago, and many other places in a very short period of time. Also, we can talk about the same issue when we look at the Arab Spring case. Here again, the citizens reporting from the area was important. And also, if you look at the Turkish case, as I'm gonna just talk a little bit about later, the Gezi movement has been also covered by the citizen journalists. I mean, because the mainstream media was not very effectively reflecting the whole side of the issue. On the other hand, I can say that citizen journalism also has some problems, as you noted on the question form. Louise, I think, asked this, the fake news issue and the accuracy of the news. This is a problem, we can say, for citizen journalism, because the quality, objectivity, and the accuracy of the reported news is a topic of debate, because of course the citizens do not have formal training, and so it may be a problem. Citizen journalism. So if we all can see from the poster, it has some different definitions like grassroots journalism or participatory journalism, distributed journalism, or user-generated content journalism. Here, the main agents behind the news are the ordinary citizens. The characteristics of citizen journalism, we can say that it's a type of digital activism. Also, it has a direct relationship with social media tools like Facebook or Twitter. And as I said, it's not produced by professional journalists. And citizen journalism can also be seen as some kind of a watchdog for civil rights abuses. When we look at the Turkish case, we know that the media scene, the media actors are not very independent in Turkey. Many of the media actors depend on some government, finances, and also the Radio and Television High Council is monitoring all the TV and radio channels, and sometimes they are, if they are oppositional, if they have an oppositional voice, that this can be a problem for them. So
sorry, dear Burak, because we have little time, we have one poster more, and we must respect time, especially for remote, even if what everybody says is wonderful, just be...
So how many minutes do I have? Sorry, I couldn't check my clock. 2 minutes. Okay. That's all I can say then. Thank you very much. I have also examples of citizen journalism in Turkey. Here are the news agencies like Ötekilerin Postası or 140 Junos, and they try to make some news. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Begum. I appreciate you addressing Lewis's question, and I see that you addressed another question from another person who was anonymous that asked about the ethics of journalism. And in one quick minute, and I asked you a couple of questions, but if you can answer in 1 minute or so, how much trust does the general population extend to news reported from social journalists, citizen journalists?
I don't know the exact numbers actually, so I'll not be able to answer. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Begum. I really appreciate your explanation of your poster and the discussion. Very well done. And the next person that we're coming to is a paper written, the Narrating the Self in a National Context, a study of Barack Obama's The Audacity of Hope as election campaign material. And this was written by Elias Gbadamosi. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Elias, if you dare, can you briefly give us a synopsis of what you wrote about and its importance to you?
Hello, good
Hi,
morning,
Elias.
or good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be, wherever we are. Thank you very much, Dr. Altamirano. My name is Elias, and as you rightly said, my topic is Narrating the Self in a National Context, a study of Barack Obama's The Audacity of Hope as election campaign material. And recently, we've seen a surge, especially in the United States of America, that in the way that presidential election candidates, people who are aspiring to the office of the President of the United States, the way many of them churn out memoirs and autobiography shortly before or during their election campaign, during the election campaign period. And in the previous election campaign cycle, we saw this with the publication of memoirs and autobiographies by contestants to the office of the president, like Mrs. Elizabeth Warren. We saw from Mr. Pete Buttigieg. We saw one from the current vice president as well, Kamala Harris, and a host of others. And what I set out to do here is to find out, why do, using Barack Obama's Audacity of Hope as my context, why do presidential election candidates in the United States of America, why do they feel a need to tell us their life stories when they are campaigning for elections? As you know, they tell us these stories as autobiographies and memoirs. And from what I discovered while examining the Audacity of Barack Obama, and from the literature review that I did, was that because narrative is at the core of every human's art, like a lot of the past research that I studied about, especially about narratives and autobiographies, make it clear that as human beings, we are inveterate storytellers. That is, we are homo narrans, like Walter Fisher put it. We are storytelling animals. And Professor Hardy, that's another scholar in 1968, said that as human beings, we dream in narratives, we eat in narratives, we sleep in narratives, we do everything we do in narratives. And that narratives is the way that we come to understand the world and our place in it, which means that Obama's The Audacity of Hope, as an autobiography, Obama tells a story there to use storytelling as a tool to connect on an emotional level with prospective voters, so that these prospective voters can vote for him. And he uses the autobiography as an opportunity to introduce himself and his policy ideas to the voting public. And one thing that I realized while also studying this topic is that people also lean towards narratives a lot, because narratives are the vehicle, is the vehicle used in society to convey values of the society, to convey the morals of the society, to convey the political thought of the society. So it is a very viable tool. And we know that values and morals and politics play a very important role in national life. And to appeal to people on a moral, on an emotional level, politicians also lean into storytelling. They tell stories about themselves, about what they've done in the past to appeal to the voting public. Another thing is that a lot of these stories that Obama tells follow a particular structure. And what I realized that Obama did is he told us about his past, about the things he has done in the past as a human being and as a public servant in the past, and how these things has prepared him for the office of the President of the United States of America. For example, he tells us that he has been a community organizer in the past in Chicago. He has been a constitutional lawyer. He has been a lecturer at the University of Chicago. He has been a good father to his children. He has been a good husband to his wife. And all of these things show that he is committed to public service, number one, and number two, that he has a very good character, and that these are the qualities that have prepared him to lead the nation as the President of the United States. And we also see this trope, because when I was studying this, I tried to relate it to other politicians as well. And when I studied the things that people like Hillary Clinton has done in the past, the way people like Hillary Clinton, like Michael Bloomberg have talked about themselves when they were campaigning, I realized that those people also do that, notwithstanding their party affiliations, whether they are Democratic or Republican, that people like Bloomberg also used his same narrative trope. Like, okay, for example, Bloomberg tells us that he has been a businessman. He started a business empire that employs about 20,000 people. He has been the mayor of New York, and he helped rebuild New York after the 9/11 attack, and that prepares him to also become the president to be a good president in the United States of America. And even I trace this back to history, especially when it comes to biblical history. And I also realized that one of a particular biblical character, that's Prophet David, also used this same narrative trope when he wanted to face Goliath in the Bible. When he wanted to face Goliath, the king of Israel, then that's King Saul, and the people of Israel were like, "Oh, David, you are too small. Look at Goliath, is very big. How do you want to combat, or how do you intend to win against Goliath?" And what David also did was he told them, "Oh, I have been a shepherd to my father's herd of sheep. I have fought lions. I have protected the sheep. I have done this. I have done that. And all of these things that I've done in the past prepares me for this future endeavor. So put your trust in me. If I've done it before, then I can do it again." And it's the same thing, and which shows that narratives are indeed, that human beings are indeed storytelling animals, and that stories appeal to us not only on a that stories appeal to us very much on an emotional level, and that stories can move us to political action, to take political action, to vote in a certain way, and to think in a certain way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do want to quickly go to your comments. Just so you know, your poster session received an average rating of 4.5. There's a couple of questions here. I wrote something. Well, I want to get to Lewis's comments and questions first. He wrote, "So narrative as a marketing tool for a potential campaign." He finds that interesting, and some narrative on becoming from First Lady Michelle Obama on her destiny to foster the next president of the United States is a funny anecdote, and she shares about an encounter with her former boyfriend in a restaurant. And I wrote, do you think that Barack Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope, serves as a guide for future political candidates in the United States or elsewhere? And I wrote in particularly candidates who are non-white, or does race matter at all in regards to these types of books written prior to campaigning?
Thank you very much, Luis, for the comments, and to Dr. Burak as well. Thank you for your comments. And to get to Dr. Altamirano's question, and when I was talking, I said some of the research that I read for this study, one thing that was reoccurring, and one thing that has been established by a lot of this research, is that storytelling is an innate part, is innate to every human being, that human beings are storytelling animals, which means that this same kind of strategy of storytelling, that's telling stories to motivate people, to move people to action, can also be replicated across all races, across all nations in the world, because research has established that all of human beings are storytelling animals. And this I think this is a thing that is even easy to understand, because in our schools, right from childhood, I remember when I was growing up, one of the ways that our elders, that our teachers sought to impart values in us is by telling us stories. When they want to, we have a lot of stories that our parents, our grandparents, our teachers have told us. And I think they use storytelling as a tool of teaching, as politicians use storytelling as a tool of motivation, because we understand the world in stories, which means that this particular strategy that Obama applied can also be applied across all races, can be applied across all geographical parts of the world. And we are also, to get to the question about if Obama's Audacity serves as a playbook for political candidates in the United States or elsewhere, I may not be able to say much about if it serves as a guide elsewhere, but in the United States, I've read Kamala Harris's autobiography as well, which was published, I think, about 4 years ago. And I see that some of the strategies that Kamala Harris used are similar to the ones Obama used as well, which means that a lot of up-and-coming presidential candidates and hopefuls are already studying Obama's style and trying to replicate that style to also see if that can move people to vote for them or not. And like I said, whether candidates are non-white or that doesn't matter. Their race does not matter at all when it comes to using this kind of narrative strategies. But one thing that I think is important is that to mention is that wherever we want to use that kind of style or that kind of narrative strategy, we have to make sure that we contextualize the stories. We put it in the context of the culture and tradition of the place. So if we want to use the same style in, let's say, a place like Greece, then we must study the culture of Greece. We must study the kind of stories or the master narratives that are available in Greece, so that the people of Greece can be able to relate these stories to their culture. So there must be a culture and story fit. That's the most important thing, because if we bring the culture of the United States to tell stories to the people of Greece, then the people of Greece will not understand, because the culture of Greece is different from the culture of the United States of America. So that's one thing that we have to pay particular attention to. We must ensure that the kind of stories we tell fits the culture of the places where we tell those stories. But the same strategy can be used across all places.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Elias. That's Elias Gbadamosi. And thank you again. I also want to thank Dr. Begum Borak, Hikmah Tahir, and Placido Antonio San Giorgio for speaking about their research and participating in this poster session. I want to congratulate the four of you for your research and for choosing to work with us, the Communication Institute of Greece, where we really try to communicate the message of positivity and love in our organization. And thank you so much. And I hope that you will continue working with us in the future. Thank you, Margarita, and thank you all, and Louis, for your questions. And we're about done here. So we're right on time.
Before closing, Michael, I would like to make a comment.
Sure.
Just for the proposal of poster, I would say the one of Begum and Elias was good as far information, the mass of information is concerned. Elias and Begum had placed the information needed, but maybe for Hikmah and Placido, I would propose that they put less information, because we need the basic points. It's like something like a PowerPoint presentation where we just put the basic points and we are able to see what the theme is about. And it's also about, for example, while we are speaking in a conference, we just choose to speak about the basic points of our research. Of course, everything is important. Of course, everything needs to be understood for people to see what we are doing. But if we say the main points, it's enough. And people who are interested will go and read the text and see the poster, etc., etc. So thank you as well for participating. And what we have prepared is a small poll with the 4 different posters where all the participants are able to choose what they think they should be. All the posters were wonderful. We don't want to make any differences, but we will take this consideration afterwards to discuss with the committee and especially Dr. Michael Altamirano and have the best paper for this conference. So please, submit your proposal. I will stop sharing.
So 9 out of 16 people are voted, so 50% are voted. Please, for the people connected, try to cast your vote in order to have maximum voters.
Yes, all the posters were wonderful, but please choose one just for us to take into consideration, because it's important to take your view.
So 10 out of 16, 11 out of 16. We keep going.
You just click to the poster you believe you like the most, and
We should be having 14 answer because
how much do we have?
we have 11.
11. So
Yeah. So
three
remaining.
I don't see Steen, so Steen.
Yeah. That's why I say 14 instead of 16.
Okay.
Because he's not here and I cannot vote.
Okay.
So two remaining, 2 people remaining. Please cast your vote.
We will wait for a little bit more and then it's okay.
1 remaining. So one more.
It's okay, Luis. In any way, if someone did not participate, maybe he wasn't there during.
Okay, no problem. So basically 81% of the participants are voted. So can I end the poll and share the results?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so here are the results. You can see on your screen.
Okay. This is not the final, but we see what the public has, the people participating has chosen, and we will discuss with the committee and Dr. Altamirano. At the end of the conference, we will present this award along with the best paper award. Okay, thank you all. And we have a 10 minutes break before the other session. Is this right, Luis?
Thank you all.
Can you hear me? I said yes. We do have a.
Yes, okay.
Before going.
So hello again. We are going for another session where Dr. Caroline Monroe, Vice President of Leadership Development, Cumming Professor of Leadership, Faculty of Management, Royal Road University, Canada, is going to be the chairperson. So Michael Altamirano, our dear professor and vice president, just wrote to me that the presentation the same as he had done yesterday. So I suppose that we have Dr. Karl Herzbogner, Mr. Chris Atencio, and the last that Caroline will present now.
Thank you, Margarita, and hello, everyone. Welcome to session number 10, which is on leadership themes. We are together from 2:40 until 4 o'clock Greece time. And having said that, the speaker that we will have first will be Dr. Karl-Heinz Pogner. So I'll let him get himself ready. We have each participant given 15 minutes for their presentation, and we'll save question and answer for the very end, where we can ask our questions and have the speakers respond. And I will keep time, and we will go from there. And on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Karl-Heinz Pogner, who is from the Department of Management, Society and Communication in Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. And he will be speaking based on his research paper on leadership, innovation, and urban governance in Denmark, the contributions of living labs.
Okay, we have introduced him, but from what Luis has just told me, he's not here yet. So maybe, Caroline, we will go to another, and then Carl will join us, thankfully.
Okay. I do see Dr. Nathan Herbst here, so I will introduce you. Are you ready, Dr. Nate?
I am, yeah, I definitely am ready to go here.
And our Dr. Nathan Herbst is the team coordinator for the Great Commission Alliance in the US. And on the program, it also mentioned that this is a research paper co-authored with Mr. Chris Atencio, who is the Assistant General Counsel and Legislative and Policy Legal Analyst for New Mexico Environment Department of the US. So we're pleased to have you here, Nate. Topic will be addressing common obstacles to effective shared leadership, a 5-year follow-up. Over to you.
Excellent. Well, is everybody able to see the slides here?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, I am very excited to be with y'all, and excited to be talking about shared leadership. Shared leadership is something that is close to my heart for various reasons. I'll share that in a minute. And I think it's just the best way to lead. It doesn't mean it's the easiest way to lead. And that's part of the focus of our paper is doing it well, because like anything in life, it can be done right or it can be done wrong. So addressing common obstacles to effective shared leadership, a 5-year follow-up. Chris can't be with us today, but he's a dear friend that lives here in Albuquerque. And anyway, I'm glad for his partnership on this paper. Okay, so why shared leadership? I just wanted to start by saying the world we live in is one that is chaotic, it's confusing, it's dynamic, it's changing, there's so much going on. And shared leadership allows us to face problems in a collaborative way that I think provides so much more than any one individual could bring to the table. The challenges that we face need a collaborative approach. The significance of how we work, not just what we do, but how we do it. Coming to the workplace, not just to do a job, but coming and being ourselves, kind of like what Carolyn was talking about yesterday, and enjoying others and their contributions in the workplace as a collaborative team. The GCA is our organization. We launched about 3.5 years ago. We get to train leaders around the world. I yearn to see them working collaboratively. And then my faith, and here's a small one. I always am very open about it, but in a personal way, Jesus has changed my life. And the Bible is very important to how I do work. And in the New Testament, especially, we see a picture of shared leadership. That's not the topic of this morning's talk, but it's something that drives me when it comes to this issue of shared leadership. And I just think this is the best model of leadership. I think it works. We see organizations beginning to embrace this in different ways, and I'm excited about it. Let me just tell you about the GCA, our organization. We run it totally collaboratively, even though we launched it 3.5 years ago. It's collaborative all the way down, and it comes with unique challenges and definitely unique opportunities, but we wouldn't change it for anything. So what is shared leadership? Shared leadership is an approach to organizational administration that involves shared influence and distributed roles. The roles part there is very, very important. And so is the influence. Anyone in the organization has an opportunity for influence, and they have specific roles that are best suited to them. Here's another one from Zhu, Lau, Yam, and Johnson. A rapidly growing body of research has started to examine shared leadership, which is broadly defined as an emergent phenomenon whereby leadership roles and influence are distributed among team members. Okay. This influence sharing is done with mutual organizational goals in mind. So within shared leadership, there are different types of structures, and I've read a lot about different shared leadership structures, interviewed many different organizations. No two have been the same up until now, but there have been elements that are the same across many different types of structures. And these are these elements of mutual influence, roles, and a common goal that unites people in their work. Okay, so let me tell you about my dissertation early on. In 2017, I did a qualitative study evaluating 10 different categories of benefits that I had seen in the literature. These included exceptional outcomes, enhanced decision-making, complex problem-solving, creative innovation, team member fit, team synergy, organizational vitality, healthy organizational culture, individual health, and sustained growth. I categorized the various different benefits into those specific terms, but these are evident in the literature. And so we went and looked at several different organizations, 7 to be exact, and looked to see if they were experiencing these different benefits. And I looked at different Christian ministries because I get to work with a lot of them, and some very successful ones. One in particular that has over 14,000 members, and looked at how they are collaboratively leading in a successful way. And they've been experiencing all these things, which was exciting. But within that qualitative research, one of the values of qualitative research is we get to dig up more. We found some potential pitfalls that surfaced in some of those interviews. These included the difficulty of the model, a potential lack of follow-through, a possible lack of efficiency, a general lack of acceptance of the model, and the danger of immature or usurping team members. And a following paper here with JICOM, we refocused on those potential pitfalls. And then in this current paper, we kind of go back to those same organizations again to kind of evaluate more. So the need for more research. The popularity of shared leadership has been growing, but Evans, Sanner, and Chu highlight the need for more research, especially into the less explored aspects of the model. And this would be one of those. What are some of the pitfalls? Like I said earlier, if we're going to do it well, we need to do it right. And it's very important to understand how to do that. So this current project revisited those same organizations, the same 7 that we originally interviewed 5 years ago. I did the interviews in 2016, and my dissertation was 2017. We wanted to kind of see if they'd experienced these pitfalls, and maybe if they had, how they'd circumvented them. And so it was an exciting revisit. In 2016, we got to visit, or we got to interview 13 leaders. And in this follow-up, we got to do 17 leaders from those same organizations. We actually got to do a few that we didn't do last time. A mixed method approach enabled collection of both qualitative and quantitative data. We got to use surveys. A survey monkey was used that helped ensure anonymity, minimize bias, and guarantee accuracy. But it helped us kind of ask both quantitative and qualitative questions. It also helped enable efficient contacts while following public health orders and guidelines with this pandemic that we are all too aware of. So let me tell you a little bit about what we found, and then we're gonna kind of dive into it. So the number of participants who experienced each obstacle, we went back to these organizations having surfaced these 5 potential pitfalls. And we asked them, have you experienced these in the past 5 years? And as you can see, pretty high numbers of these organizations had experienced each of these pitfalls, some more than others. So these are common in shared leadership, at least in the organizations that we interviewed. A potential difficulty of sharing leadership, it's just difficult. It's easy when one person says how it goes and that's the end of the story. It's hard when you have to collaboratively make this work. A lack of follow through, a lack of efficiency, a lack of acceptance of the model, the danger of immature or usurping team members. So you can see many of the different organizations said that they'd experienced these issues in the last 5 years. They were also given the opportunity to highlight other impediments that they've encountered. One talked about the difficulty of co-leading with other leaders who have different involvement and commitment levels. That could go under the difficulty of the model. Another mentioned a continuing need for structure. This is a theme that comes up over and over again. A top-down organization has a pretty simple structure and it's not too difficult to follow. But when you are leading collaboratively, having a structure that works can be a little bit difficult. A final comment described the risk of avoiding confrontation and just how that works with accountability. That's another theme that we addressed in those initial pitfalls. So the 5 drawbacks that were considered in this endeavor have been experienced fairly broadly. And I think that, 1 minute here, I think that it's important to recognize that, but also to recognize that's not the end. One respondent said, we've experienced all of them. And to address them, we've had to demonstrate shared leadership with others and to reiterate the principles with those that don't understand. Unfortunately, that takes significant energy. It's difficult to work through these issues. That's not to say that we can't, but it takes intentionality. Still, all of these organizations had continued to lead collaboratively. None of them had shifted to a top-down model. They were all very happy to be sharing leadership, even with the difficulties. Each of the 7 organizations that were interviewed had continued, and few considered any of these obstacles to be significant problems, and they'd all persevered with the model. So let me tell you about this next slide. The number of participants who considered each obstacle a significant problem for the organization. So here's where we get to we asked a lot of questions, and in the paper you'll see that there's just a lot more there, but just kind of some summary slides. So many had experienced these pitfalls, but the number who actually considered them to be a significant problem for the organization was very low. They'd been able to work through these collaboratively and to find different ways to experience success with the model. Here are some of the ways that they mitigated these pitfalls, emphasizing the importance of leader humility, accountability, and maturity. Within shared leadership, you have to have competent leaders collaboratively leading. It's essential because a weak link here can really bring the whole thing down. But humility is absolutely key. If there's somebody there trying to show that they're the top, it's going to be difficult. Adding clarity to roles and procedures and establishing clear structures. This was essential. Providing ongoing training on the mechanics of shared leadership. Continuing relational team building. Setting a culture in which shared leadership can be successful. And having authentic conversations for real accountability. those are some of the ways that they had worked through these pitfalls. Again, they'd experienced them all, but none of them were causing them to give up sharing leadership. Okay, shared leadership has been associated with so many different benefits. I shared 10 of them with you at the beginning. And even in our own organization, we've seen that. We launched 3.5 years ago with this model. We've trained over 9,000 leaders in more than 25 countries since that time. I was just in El Salvador and Honduras last week. The organization has grown rapidly. We've grown to 17 staff members real quickly. And I think a lot of the benefits that we've experienced have had a lot to do with sharing leadership. I'm not the end with any decision in our organization. Every decision is collaborative. Experiencing this requires circumventing potential obstacles. We've seen these just like these organizations have. And even though those limitations do exist, they can be mitigated. And that's definitely what I want to get across is sharing leadership can be difficult, but it's the best because you honor each other in each other's roles and responsibilities and strengths. And you see people as individuals coming to a team with a person to offer to the problems that you face, not just a job description. And even though there might be more relational work to do to effectively share leadership, there are so many benefits. The organizations surveyed for this research have found success using it, even though they've had to mitigate some of these pitfalls. I love this quote from one of them. This person said, "We love shared leadership. It's healthy and joyful in so many ways." And I thought that's such a great way to describe it. Even with the pitfalls, when we collaboratively lead, there is an organizational health and joy in the workplace that you simply, I don't think we'll find all the time in a very top-down type of structure. So I love shared leadership, and I'm a little bit biased in that, but I'm excited that we get to learn how to do it better. Acknowledgements. Alexander Strauch is kind of famous in the Christian ministry world for championing this model of shared leadership. He's written many books on the topic, and a lot of different churches that are leading collaboratively really lean on Alexander Strauch's work. And he actually helped kind of channel the original research. He kind of helped point me in the right direction. And I ran some of this by him, and he just gave me a lot of pointers and where to go. And he's worked with hundreds of churches on this same theme. And so he had a lot of great advice. Super thankful to him. And I didn't know this, but he's doing, I think, a 30-year follow-up to his original book on the topic. And he wants to quote some of the same stuff. So I was just very honored by his participation in this project. And our dear Margarita, who embodies shared leadership in a way we can all aspire to. Margarita, everything about combing kind of shows this model of shared leadership. So I'm very thankful to be a part of all that you're doing, and just thankful for your example of these things. Hey, I'm at 14:32 on my clock. So Carolyn, I'm going to hand it back over to you. And if we have any questions, I can answer those later in the interaction time. Thank you.
Nate, you have timed that with the greatest of precision. Thank you so much for a very enlightening presentation, and wonderful to see you going back and rediscovering that which you discovered originally. And I know there'll be questions later on, so hold on, because we'll go through the agenda and then circle back for Q&A afterwards. So on the agenda, folks, just to let you know, we've had Carl join us, which is wonderful. So what we're going to do is put Kiani and Michael next. Then we'll circle back to Carl for presentation. And then Michael would like to present without PowerPoint presentation notes, but lead us in discussion on the topic of the new reality of teaching in the age of a modern pandemic. So just a few changes there, and thank you for everyone's patience. So on that note, I would like to introduce now to the gallery, Ms. Kayani McFadden, who is an MBA student, King Graduate School, Monroe College in the Bronx, New York. And with her, Dr. Michael Altamirano, professor, King Graduate School, Monroe College, USA, and also our distinguished VP of Strategic Management, Communications, and Management in Greece. So I turn it over to you on the topic of situation factors and increased workplace burnout, a study of influences affecting current younger employees. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And while Kiani is uploading or sharing her screen and pulling up the PowerPoint, I do want to say that Kiani is no longer an MBA candidate. She is a full-fledged MBA graduate. That has happened since writing this paper. And I just wanted to extend my congratulations to Kiani on what was a very difficult journey, because it culminated toward the end. Well, the last couple of semesters were during the pandemic, and she did a marvelous job of finishing under very difficult circumstances. So congratulations, Kiani. And I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm here for support. Holler if you need me.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm a little nervous, so I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here and share this information of a paper that I really enjoyed doing research on. I just want to make sure that I let everyone know that this information was collected before the COVID pandemic. So a lot of this information may seem a little not relevant now, but it still has some relevance. Can everyone see my screen clearly and hear me clearly?
Loud and clear. If you want, you can open up your presentation fully.
Okay. All right. There you go. Okay. So the purpose of the study was that in May of 2019, the World Health Organization actually estimated that 264 million people suffer from depression, which was like a note to realize that it was a cause that would cause people disabilities or contribute to occupational syndrome burnout. So that's the reason why we decided to do this study, and to better understand that, or why situational factors were important to understanding how it affected the workplace. Situational factors are things such as job demands and resources that are provided by employers. And it could affect a person mentally. And when a person's mental health is overloaded with work responsibilities, that condition could affect or reduce their professional effectiveness or their productivity. So this is a major concern in the workforce. So there were several shared articles and research that we reviewed in our literature review, and it showed that additional research is needed in this to better understand work burnout, and that employee assistance has been linked to being a benefit in decreasing burnout.
Kiani, are you there?
She can maybe turn off her camera.
Yeah, try turning off your camera, Kiani, if you could hear us. And while Kiani is figuring out her connection situation, I just wanted to just go over that. We did a lot of literature review for this particular article. In particular, the buffering effects of displaced workers, and We're going to wait for Kiani to bring up that PowerPoint again. And I apologize for this, everyone, but sometimes we can't avoid technical issues, like I can't turn on my camera for the moment as well. There is Kiani.
I'm sorry, I guess I lost internet connection. One thing I've learned from the pandemic is that the internet will do what it wants to do. I'm sorry about that. I believe we're up to methodology. The methodology.
But Kiani, you can turn off your camera while presenting. It is better for the connection.
No problem. If this works better. Okay, so we use methodology for this study. I'm sorry, the methodology for this study was qualitative holistic approach. And the reason that we conducted a qualitative study was to learn more about the opinions and the motivation of the respondents regarding the topic. And with the results, we got also a deeper and more holistic understanding of how they felt about burnout. And the questions and the topic were not shared with the participants before the interviews, and I'll explain that in the next slide. So the researchers, which was Dr. A and I, we didn't share the questions with the participants, and the reason why we didn't share it is because we didn't want there to be any biased opinions ahead of time if participants knew the questions. So this is just a few of the questions that we asked, and it allowed us to have a flow with the participants to see their real reactions regarding different the different aspects of their work situations. So a few of the questions are, how much time do you spend on yourself each week? Describe the professionalism at your workplace. Describe your relationship with other people at your workplace. Do those relationships affect how you feel about your workplace? Do you know what workplace burnout is? Would you consider yourself to fall into that category? Do you think that workplace has a direct impact on your health? And can an organization or workplace do anything to relieve that burnout? So those were important questions because participants would then open up and freely express what they felt about those different things, and they would expand about their feelings of workplace burnout and their personal experience at work. The participants for the study were under the age of 50. They all worked full time, which is 40 hours a week. And unfortunately, it was a narrow, limited sample within one geographical area, but it did allow us to have more of an intimate study with the participants, and it did allow us to see that this is definitely a topic that we could discuss with the larger population in the future. So workplace burnout is a topic that needs to be discussed because it does promote mental health awareness, and support is something that is needed to decrease the risk factors of depression, which can create a healthier workplace if workplaces provide those assistance or resources that employees need. And due to the rapid change in the workplace, it does create uncertainty and direct pressures on individuals and as they work. In addition, there is an increase of the amount of intensity requirements for a lot of businesses and enterprises and organizations, which do cause more of the stresses on employees and on managers. Work-life balance is also a tremendous effect on the psychological characteristics of an individual and how they handle the different situations that go on with them throughout their personal and work life. There are a lot of studies out that correlate that psychological characteristics can cause or lead to burnout, which can also lead to other health conditions such as diabetes, type 2 diabetes, cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart disease, and also cause a lack of sleep, which also will cause exhaustion and weariness, which will cause an issue at work. And stress reduction programs will be beneficial for companies because it will help to create that healthy workplace balance, and it will promote work-life balance for individuals. And some of those types of programs would be stress reduction, training, wholeness programs, innovation to help with awareness and techniques that are best for to reduce those stressors, and cognitive behavior therapies. And through those things, they can increase job satisfaction. And when someone's satisfied with their job, they do have overall happiness. And it could decrease absenteeism, and it could lessen workplace burnout. So in the conclusion, we found that future research regarding burnout would be beneficial to better understand the global workplace behaviors related to situational factors, stress management, and work-life balance that can promote mental health and support individuals. And the second point is that the World Health Organization realized that this was a topic that needed to be pushed forward, and that it could possibly help more people to receive the assistance that they need. And the last point is that it suggested that companies find different resources that they can introduce or implement into their programs for employees to allow them to communicate how they feel, motivate them in the workforce, provide support services, and provide a positive moral leadership. I want to thank everyone for their time listening to this presentation. And I would love to thank everyone for this amazing opportunity to allow me to take part in this amazing conference. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Kiani, on behalf of all of us, you did a wonderful job countering those nerves. What a wonderful presentation, and congratulations on earning your MBA. That is just wonderful. And to be in the fine company of doing this research with Michael, as you affectionately called him, Dr. A, which I think I'm going to start calling him Dr. A.
That's what everyone calls me, Dr. A.
And we'll be circling back to you afterwards to invite you to answer some questions, because I'm sure there will be some. So thank you so much. And Carl is with us. So we're going to put Carl's presentation on the agenda right now. It is my pleasure to welcome to the gallery Dr. Carl Heinz Pogner, who is with the Department of Management, Society, and Communications with the Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. And he will be speaking about leadership, innovation, and urban governance in Denmark, the contributions of living labs. Carl, welcome, and over to you. Are you there, Carl?
His microphone is muted. But,
is microphone muted?
No longer.
No longer? Okay.
I hope
we'll
so.
Put 15 minutes on the clock, Carl. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. So the first slide you already have commented. My problem at the moment is I can't change the slide at the moment. So just give me a sec to try to find out. Okay. So what was important to say for me is that This is actually not only me having done the research, but there is a lot of contributions from master thesis and master thesis students as Michelle, Christine, Sarah, and Lavinia, Isabel, Julia Magdalena, Barbara, and Olga. They did master theses in these topics, and I used a lot of their ideas and especially their interview material and their document material to a kind of summing up what came out the last, almost 3-4 years looking at leadership, innovation, and urban governance in Denmark. So why talking about cities? Why are they front runners? Of course, because there is a rising urbanization all over the world, especially in the non-West world, and there are a lot of new urban challenges, new forms of urban governances and citizens' involvement, you could say, are necessarily to answer the or to counteract against the big challenges that are waiting in front of us. And of course, also economical, ecological, and now pandemic crisis, they are first and foremost a phenomenon and a problem in cities, in big cities especially. There's also a kind of competitiveness between the cities. There is also a need for creative solutions because the solutions until now, they didn't work. So, and these new solutions combine policies and urban projects. And by the way, there is the SDG number 11, the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which is about cities and inclusion, safety, resilience, and sustainable. So this is the situation as you see it, and this is the idea of the 11th Sustainable Developmental Goal that also has an impact on the future of the cities and the contribution of the cities to solve these problems. But it's also a democratic, in my opinion, a democratic challenge here. And for example, Sørensen and Torfring, some researchers from Roskilde, they are talking about democratic network governance instead of government. As such, the idea of the sovereign state governing society top down through comprehensive planning, programmed action, and detailed regulations is losing its grip and is being replaced by new ideas about a pluricentric governance based on interdependence, negotiation, and, I add hopefully, trust. So what's going on? There are in the world, on the macro level, we have different welfare systems. And in the different welfare systems, for example, the state in some welfare regimes, as Gösta Esping Andersen is calling it, there is, in certain regimes, the market is doing the whole thing. Our friends from America will know this system. In other systems, it's the state, it's in autocratic regimes in the old times. In the communistic world, nowadays we find it in other places. And there is a lot of civil society. My Greek friends, my Italian friends, my French friends, and so on and so forth. There it's a family. And sometimes the church that plays a very, very important role in the welfare state, meaning when both welfare is produced, but also when it comes to how is it distributed. I want to use this idea and apply it to the municipality or to the city level. So, and that leaves us from democratic network governance to urban governance, which is a kind of a cluster of meanings, particularly around decentralization, entrepreneurialism, and democratization. So, decentralization, D, entrepreneurship, E, democratization, D, DED. Urban governance is the formulation and pursuit of collective goals at the local level of the political system, and it refers to the development and governance styles in which boundaries between and within public and private sectors have become blurred. The essence of governance is its focus on governing mechanisms which do not rest on the resource of just authority and sanctions of the government. This leads us to new public governance. New public governance promotes a collaboration culture, not a top-down culture, based on a sustained interaction with, quote, society where a plethora of public and private actors collaborate in order to find and provide new and better solutions to shared problems and challenges. It combines the strengths of public administration and the new public management, this neoliberal idea, by recognizing the legitimacy and interrelatedness of both the policymaking and the implementation service delivery processes. And it favors more trust-based leadership and management, here the connection to leadership, which is a topic of our section here, collaboration with the private sector and citizens in public sector innovation. So that means, that calls, in my opinion, for a relational distributed leadership, a more systematic perspective whereby leadership as such is conceived of as a collective social process emerging through the interactions of multiple actors and not only of leaders. That leads to different political leadership roles in new urban public. So it is about giving power to somebody or having power over somebody, being responsive to the needs, or giving the direction for the future. And there you have the city king that is using her power and is directive. And on the other side, you have the consensual facilitator that tries to furnish, to foster, to support shared leadership, distributed leadership. So we are somewhere here, collaborative, shared, democratic, distributed leadership when it comes to at least new urban governance and especially co-creation. What I'm going to tell in the remaining minutes is about our research project or projects where we will look at 3 different cities and how, for example, city labs and other projects and initiatives, how they may have developed or may not have developed new forms of leadership, governance, and so on and so forth. So the project is interested in the social context of urban governance and tries in the theoretical framework to combine the urban governance triangle. That was the triangle I showed you, a triangle of state, municipality, and market, and on the other side of civil society or citizens. It tries to combine it with new urban governance, development, leadership, distributed leadership. You could also say public innovation and design thinking. And we were interested, we are still interested in the consequences for the concept of leadership by looking at the social and discursive construction of urban governance and leadership. Actually, in 3 different Danish cities, the first step, that is what we have accomplished despite the corona, is case studies of projects and so on in Copenhagen. So just for those of you who do not know, it's the capital of Denmark, and it has some inhabitants, nevertheless, 1.280 million inhabitants in the municipality, and is a member of what is called the C40 cities that have an ambition to have a big impact when it comes to carbon neutral future. So, and here are the different labs and projects where we did these explorative case studies, or I should say, well, the students did the explorative case studies. The first one was about a climate block in the climate resilient climate neighborhood, yeah, just around the corner where I live, here in Copenhagen. It was done by Colin Hansen, 2016, her master thesis. The other one, a rather new one, it was Isabel Rath. She did a study, an explorative study on collaborative innovation in the urban context, looking at different urban living labs in the greater Copenhagen area. And then Michelle Brenum looked at leadership and communication when co-creating neighborhood development in the southern harbor of Copenhagen. And then Isabella Betz and Magdalena Betz and Barbara Shigova, they looked at public-private innovation partnerships in waste management. Circular Copenhagen, which is part of the administration of technique and environment, especially the Department of Planning, Analysis and Resources. And then Zara Nardi and Lavinia Merogiola, they looked at social collective innovation. They looked actually at community gardening or urban gardening. And as a contrast, we also had Oda Svenningsen looked at Oslo, the Oslo region's Bodø in northern Norway and Kongsberg nearby Oslo. She looked at sustainable mobility. So the methodology is more or less philosophy of science, social constructivism, yeah, and partially hermeneutics in the version of Gadamosi, research designs, induction, maybe sometimes abduction, it's case studies, and so on and so forth. And here, of course, the students come in that did these case studies. The data is qualitative data, semi-structured research interviews, also a few focus groups, a lot of documents and some observations and field notes. The data analysis is built on stakeholder analysis, pardon the typo, content analysis, especially thematic network analysis, critical discourse analysis, mostly in the way Fairclough and in Germany in Duisburg, Jäger did it. The theoretical framework or frameworks, they are built on stakeholder analysis, especially on the idea of salience of stakeholders, on critical discourse analysis, which is not only a tool, but also a theory of constituting and constituating, and being constituted, you could also say. Public innovation, new public management, new urban governance, organizational communication, especially the idea that communication constitutes organization and enables and constrains the action and the communication. So here are the learnings that came out from all these analyses. And I have tried to find what is going through the different, find out what is going through the different case studies. So the biggest challenge is realizing and establishing a project, the main goals of the project under constraints. And there are always constraints. It's crucial to have a mutual understanding of the key concepts. And it's crucial that leadership is visible and acting in critical moments of the project. Critical is the engagement and ownership question. Not only the leaders should be engaged and have ownership, but the citizens, of course, too. Important drivers are shared goals, strong interdependency between empowered and committed actors, and the likelihood and shared gains. Leaders need to move successfully through relational processes if they want to succeed in creating guided leadership. So it's not only about practical knowledge, it's also a kind of a concern for the participants' point of views and acknowledgement of their values. Sometimes the participants or the followers, if you wish, have better insights than the leaders. Meta-governance, meaning that the public sector more or less is facilitating and maybe guiding the processes, is very, very crucial, because there are a lot of collaboration challenges. We heard a lot of that about that in the first presentation today. Public innovation, when it comes to public innovation, crucial is the diffusion question of innovative urban solutions and the translation of knowledge to other environmental contexts. So success in public innovation is when the others copy you, and not when you are the only one that has a solution. So there's always lack of resources and lack of formal policy support. This constrains the development of capabilities, but the good news is that the networks of actors and the social capital partially compensate for the lack of the resources and the policy support. Factors which impact innovative outcomes of public-private innovation partnerships. The main driver is diversity. It's the overarching driver, and the rest are the dimensions of a system context, the legal situation, the technical situation, and so on and so forth. The commitment, the alignment, the leadership, innovation development, and collaborative outcomes. And there are some other specific influences for some of the project, co-creation and third-party funding. My last slide is about the next steps. So until now, I just have summed up what came in the different, what we achieved in the different case studies. But a real comparative analysis still is needed. And in the other direction, a content and discourse analysis of the whole corpus as one corpus of the interviews and documents has not been done. They have almost only be done to the respective project / urban lab / initiative / municipality. And it would be very, very interesting, in my opinion, to make this comparative analysis also a comparative analysis of the whole corpus by looking of the different voices, the different sense making different discourses, different negotiating of meaning of different stakeholder groups, and especially, of course, not only the experts, but the citizens. Amen.
Thank you, Carl. You always ask the big and important questions about governance and leadership, and thank you for bringing that rich synergy that comes from working with your students, which you've always brought to the fold. So thank you, and stay with us because there'll be some questions and some answers after. And last but not least, we're going to circle back to Dr. Michael Altamirano, Dr. A, which I'm going to affectionately call him from this point on. And Michael led us in a very thoughtful and thought-provoking discussion yesterday. He actually was our first session speaker, talking about the new reality of teaching in the age of a modern pandemic, a study of New York City higher education, and left us with so many questions and thoughtful ways of looking at higher education. And Michael would like to use this time to come into conversation and to continue the discourse with us. So, Carl, is there a way that you're able to
I try.
Stop the sharing?
Stop,
and, yeah, thanks, Carl.
It's saying it's paused, but okay, let's see. I stop share now. So everybody should be okay.
Okay, and I turn the stage over to Michael. Michael, it's all yours.
Thank you, Caroline. Can everyone see the picture that I have up of my students?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to put something up because I didn't want to just not speak to a blank canvas. A little bit more about my presentation yesterday, and part of what I'm talking about in particular was inspired by Carl, because Carl asked me a really important question, and it was important that I distinguished that my observations of teaching in this during this current pandemic is really from a New York City perspective, in particular the Bronx, New York, where our little college is located. And I mentioned yesterday that I celebrate everything with my students. And during normal times, we would be taking a class picture together, but because of the pandemic, I've had to become a little bit creative about taking a group picture, similar to what we used to do at the Communication Institute of Greece when we all used to meet together in Athens. Maybe this is an idea that maybe we could do for all of us before we end today. But I did want to talk in particular about the leadership challenges that are facing our little institution and a lot of colleges and universities in the Bronx, New York, and the New York City area. And part of that is enrollment. All the schools are struggling with enrollment. As a matter of fact, our enrollment was down only slightly the last couple of semesters, but looking ahead at September, it looks like our numbers are going to be down even more. And part of that has to do because we're living in an age where there is so much political back and forth in regards to vaccination, COVID-19, and all of that. And I don't want to make this a political discussion at all, but that is just a fact of life. In particular, in the Bronx, the percentage of people that are unvaccinated is great. We're talking about 70% of people in the Bronx are not vaccinated, and those are our population of students. And recently, the president of the college made an announcement that anyone who is not vaccinated will not be allowed to be on campus. So you can't take classes on campus and all of that. And like I said, people's personal views are their own personal views. However, that has been the president's stance of the institution, and it's not unlike many other college presidents around the country and around the world who have made the same type of difficult decision. A leadership challenge for myself and other instructors is we've had synchronous and asynchronous learning for a while now, and synchronous learning for the last 17 months for me has been virtually teaching my classes online, similar to this, having a virtual lecture. And normally my lectures are 3 hours long, but I found that, and many of the people that I've interviewed have found that teaching virtually has become a difficult challenge for us, because while we ask our students to turn on their cameras, no one turns on their cameras. While we ask our students to participate, no one participates. And as a matter of fact, there was a study done recently that during these virtual synchronous learning sessions, over 95% of students are doing something else and not paying full attention to their lectures, primarily being on their smartphones. And we can't control what students do at home, and that's just become another issue. And as for me, I just received my schedule for September, and I'm not teaching any classes live. So I'm going to go well on 2 years without having been on campus to teach a class. And I've always taught asynchronous courses, and asynchronous is pretty easy for those of you that are on here that teach asynchronous, because students who choose to take online learning classes, they're pretty much good at self-teaching themselves. But synchronous classes in a virtual environment have become a very big challenge, not just for me, but for other instructors in our area. And I suspect other instructors around the world. And some of you can probably chime in when I'm done. The other struggle, I also mentioned this yesterday, is the struggle of receiving assignments on time. the problems with technology, where you would think we live in New York and the technology is great, but in reality, our technology is way behind other parts of the world. And you know, to briefly get away from higher education, the issue is even more intense in the grade school kids who are having trouble getting technology to take their courses. And now they're going to be going on campus in September, vaccinated or not. We're going to see how that works out. But as we all know, there's also rising numbers because of this new variant that's out. And like I said, I don't want to make this a political discussion at all, but I'm just pointing out facts that things are getting worse instead of getting better, especially in our little corner of the world where me and Kiani are from. And that's all I wanted to share with all of you. And that's it. So I look forward to discussing. And like I said, this is a picture of my students from one of my classes from last semester. They graduated with their MBA, and I'll be doing the same thing this semester again. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity, Caroline, to further expound on my discussion yesterday.
Always a pleasure, Michael, and to see all of your students on the screen, and to know how many people you have inspired along the way, even in these very challenging times. So thank you for continuing to fill our thinking about what is happening at higher education in the realities of pandemic. So thank you. And thank you. Oh my goodness, we have gone from, we started with shared leadership, then made our way into a workplace burnout. We then moved into urban governance, the labs and projects, and landed on the new reality of teaching in the age of a pandemic. And we have approximately 15 minutes on the clock for some questions. So why don't we get the conversation started? Who would like to open up the microphone and ask any one of our distinguished speakers a question?
I'm happy to go first.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say that all those presentations were absolutely amazing and inspirational. And I guess, look, this isn't to anyone in particular, but a lot of it was about working together and sharing leadership, which I think is the best way forward for everything. But I'm just wondering, how are people dealing with the different personalities? Because everyone has the right intentions, I think, in any leadership role, but sometimes there are personalities that just make the true, I guess, model of that shared leadership really hard to enact. So, I mean, is that just an ongoing challenge that we have to work through? Is there something that maybe through Nat's work, you've actually come up with some type of formula that might work? I'm not sure.
Could I answer that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't want to get ahead of anyone, and so I definitely want to leave room for anybody else that would contribute to that. Sophie, that's an absolutely wonderful observation. And when we share leadership, what we've found practically doing this as an organization, and then also surveying other organizations, is everybody comes to the team with different strengths, weaknesses, different personalities, different abilities. And one thing, my leadership, or my PhD was completely focused on leadership. And one thing, if you look at the history of leadership research, it started with traits, kind of innate traits. It went on to skills. It went on to style and situational leadership. It's gone through this progression over the last century. And I think one of the big takeaways, it went into a lot of relational areas now: emotional intelligence, transformational leadership, authentic leadership, servant leadership, all these different areas. And one of the big takeaways is that leaders are not one way all the time. There's so many different types of effective leaders and so many different personalities that can effectively lead. So in a shared organization, what we try to do is we are trying to find how each individual can bring their best self to the team and can contribute in their strengths. So a lot of times we focus on roles. We're hiring a new lady this week. Actually, we did her interview last week, and my hope for her is not that she would come in and fill a specific job description, but that she would come in and find her specific sweet spot, her perfect roles mix on the team. And so it's going to take some intentionality working with her to help her find that sweet spot that's going to fit with her personality and her strengths and all these different attributes. So that takes some time. And I think on any shared leadership, those issues that you brought up, they're going to have to be an intentional focus for the organization, helping someone find their fit, helping them understand where their personality fits in. Another thing that we found on our team is I'm one of the loud voices, right? I love to talk, and they're probably about half the people on our team that are like me, but they're also probably half that have a quieter personality. And if we're going to authentically share leadership, we have to create some protocols where we surface those quieter voices and give them an opportunity to speak, maybe draw them out some. So we're constantly looking for ways. We read a great book as a team on this recently, and I'm forgetting the title. The 5 Voices, I think, The 5 Voices. But it was all about this, just finding the different voices on the team and drawing out those different personalities. So I would just say that's one of the things you're constantly going to have to be working on in collaboration. But it takes work, but it's good work. It's like anything that's worth doing in life. As you work on it together, you're going to find more satisfaction as a team and more success too.
Yeah, I really like that phrase about everyone finding their voice. I think that's really important. And I think we, those of us that work in shared leadership roles, what you're saying is really true. It's actually just articulated the experience of finding voice. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
I have also, I think, 2, maybe 3 reflections, observations. The first thing is long back to my PhD. I did a PhD on text production as social interaction, and the text production was done by consulting engineers. So, and the key word was alignment. Even if we didn't agree, even if consultants and the consultantee or the negotiator, whoever, they did not agree on the detail, they disbanded the disagreement for the sake of the general alignment. And that could also help. If there is really a common goal, maybe we can be a little bit more tolerant for some people that are annoying. That's number 1. Number 2 is about what you were already referring to, the roles. I see the problem not that maybe some of the participants in the team or something are the problem. Sometimes the leader is the problem and his traits or her traits. Mm-hmm. So psychopathic leadership is also to be found, right? So, but nevertheless, so when it comes to the negotiation of roles, sometimes leaders have the idea that they should control, and then some in the team or outside the teams are suddenly enemies, just because they are asking critical questions. They're not enemies. They want to be part of the journey, also with a critical reflection. So it will become a better process, a better product, a better solution, a better whatever, a better world. Third one is about, and this is only a minor observation, during the pandemic and doing online supervision of the students. For example, as you know, like Nate, I'm a person that loves to talk loudly, clearly and loudly. So what I did, for example, is I asked the students, they should do the agenda, and one of them should be the convener of the meeting. So again, playing with roles. And when I was leading the, what is it called, the study program, when I was the study program director, I always tried to get somebody else. And in the Danish system, it might be students, actually. At the study board, we have 3 students, and we have 3 teachers, researchers. So, and I get them some of the roles that normally are attributed to the boss, in this case, the academic director. So roles, you can do a lot of things with, especially functional roles that may overrule or overrule, some traits that we are not so fond of.
That's great. Thank you, Carl. That's very well put.
And I think Sophia Kiani also responded in the chat box, referring to Nate, your comment to find that sweet spot within an organization. This would be great on a global scale and allow more people to find their purpose at work, which ties nicely in with what you were saying, Kiani, in your presentation. Did you want to speak more to that, or that suffices?
No, that suffices. Thank you.
Okay, great. Just wanted to have that placeholder for you. Okay, now, Louis, I saw your hand go up originally.
Yeah,
but...
that's okay. That's okay.
No? Okay.
Moving on. Moving on.
Moving on. And Guido,
Actually,
I
wanted to ask a question about the burnout. And it
Carl,
maybe not only.
Dear Carl, can I ask you just to hold that question, because I see one more hand in the gallery.
Sure.
I just want to honor that hand, and then I'm going to circle right back to you. Okay? All righty. Okay. Guido, please come into the conversation.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for your presentations. Very good points. We learned so many new things today. I just wanted to ask first Nate and then Carl, because I mean, it's about different leadership styles. To what extent you can find successful shared leadership examples in organizations other than the Christian ministries, because I assume that in a Christian ministry, you do have already there an organizational culture which perhaps will allow for this type of leadership model. And then going to Carl, I could see also Carl offering a similar, but quite different, but similar in the sense of the collaborative relation and leadership. And this being applied to an urban environment in Denmark. But of course, in Denmark, I mean, you already have there a culture which can support this type of leadership. So, I mean, perhaps I assume, but I don't know to what extent this could be helpful here or, successful in Greece. So it's the question of culture, basically. So it's culture because we are also an international group here, so it's the cultural parameter and to what extent one can apply successfully a model of shared leadership or relational leadership. And so what have you learned? I mean, based on your studies, what can you tell us about the cultural aspect of those projects? Thank you.
Nate, do you want to go first?
Yeah, those are excellent questions. Guido, I hope I said that right. And yes, I'll keep it short. And I want to notice Louis's comment here too. I think in the next session on shared leadership, we'll have communication about some of these things too. But I think we'll have a lot of different related questions. And what you just brought up is absolutely an essential consideration. So let me preface this by saying when we look at the shared leadership research, there's minimal research within the area of Christian organizations. And that's one reason I focused my dissertation on that. I could only find at the time of my dissertation, this is 5 years ago now, about one dissertation on the topic and maybe 1 or 2 academic papers on the topic. So there's minimal research. However, there's an extensive body of research on this. in many different fields like education, fields like medicine, fields like the military, many different areas where there has been a tremendous amount of research on shared leadership and sharing leadership. And I think just to clarify terms, Craig Pierce, one of the researchers in the field, he says all leadership is shared leadership, just in matters of degree. So he would say Kim Jong-un shares leadership in North Korea, just maybe not as much as Carl does in Copenhagen, right? So no one person can do everything. And so there are different structures that we see when we come to shared leadership, but the goal is more collaboration and effective collaboration. And that's going to involve very many essentials. But there are some organizations doing this in unique ways and experiencing success with it. So Morningstar produces 40% of the world's tomato paste products. So if you've ever eaten ketchup at McDonald's or something similar, no doubt you've had Morningstar tomato products in your diet. And they are run with one of the most extreme decentralized approaches to leadership I've ever heard of, far beyond anything our team has ever experienced. Zappos is a shoe company here in the United States, an online shoe company. They use a model called holacracy. They're very famous for using the holacracy model. And holacracy does a very good job of explaining a shared structure. And it's used by more than 1,000 organizations here in the US. And so there's a great book by Brian Robertson. It's just titled Holacracy. And they also have a great website where organizations can learn different principles. But other organizations like the Southwest Airline here in the US is pretty committed to different types of shared leadership. The Panda Restaurant Group, I don't know if all of you have Panda, kind of a Chinese fast food restaurant that we have a lot around here. I love it, but they run with a very shared model. Alcoholics Anonymous globally helps people out of addiction, and they run with a shared leadership model. In fact, that's how Craig Pierce got into shared leadership. He's now one of the big experts in this field, but in his personal story, he struggled with alcoholism, and he was able to have victory over that addiction through the work of Alcoholics Anonymous. But he saw this model of leadership that intrigued him, and he became probably one of the leading voices in the world on shared leadership. But I guess I would just say lots of organizations outside of my domain use this model. And when I come to my domain, I see it in the New Testament. I don't know if any of you have ever read through the New Testament, but there's not a major decision made in the New Testament by one person. You see these collaborative groups like the Jerusalem Council and other groups making collaborative decisions. And also the initial church structure was shared. We see a plurality of elders, a plurality of deacons, not one man running everything or one person running everything. So I was drawn to the topic, but unfortunately, I don't see it very often in Christian work. And so I feel like there's a disconnect. I see the model, but I don't see its practical application near enough. And so I'm hoping to help influence some change there. But Carl, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too.
Thank you. So thank you that you showed that at least in the US, shared leadership, participative leadership, and so on, and distributed leadership. I work together with Susanne Uhl-Biel. She does a lot of research and training in this field with all forms of commercial organizations. So it's not only about Christianity and so on and so forth. The next part of my answer would be that, especially we did a workshop in South Africa, right? And we was Susanne and I and some of my colleagues. And the workshop in South Africa was meant to be about distributed leadership. And the second day, the students that were invited, they had the idea they didn't get any voice. So they boycotted the whole thing. And then the Europeans and the Americans, they blow up the whole workshop by starting a kind of a small revolution and giving the workshop to the students. And then the students came back because they had the idea now that they at least were being heard instead of that it was talked to them. So, and I must say the original trainer for this course, she was a disaster. So it was no wonder that the students didn't come. I can tell a lot about what she did wrong, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, but nevertheless. So then the next part of my answer, and this is the next one part of the answer, is I think at least I can talk to the Scandinavian context culturally, not only Denmark. And nevertheless, when I look at the Greek culture, I do not know so much about it, but I know some people in Greece, actually a lot of people. I work together with a lot of people in Greece. And on the one side, I may exaggerate. There is this macho, paternalistic picture of a leader. On the other side, there are movements, cooperatives, crowdfunding, the Digi project in Athens that are grassroots projects. They all have shared leadership. I don't know what happens when they turn into real organizations. Let's see. Cooperatives are already organizations. Third part, and that is the last part, is about the idea that, how should I put it, that there is only one solution. I think Nate was into it indirectly. There is not for every problem, there is one fit-it-all solution. And that's our job as researchers, and that's the job of the students when they later on get a job, to make a proper analysis on what is going on. Stakeholder analysis, and if you like a psychological illness, whatever what they are specialized in, before they can come up with in later on their job with kind of a contribution to a solution of a problem. Because of course, I admit distributed leadership is unfortunately seen for many organizations and managers, not leaders, managers, as a panacea, as a kind of a repair kit, a first aid kit, because the old model doesn't work. And that's not enough, because the only thing they will show is that it doesn't work. I hope it was at least provoking.
Thank you. It has indeed provoked a lot of conversation and lots of good comments in the chat box as well. Margarita, I realize that we are a few minutes past 4 o'clock. I'm going to turn it over to you so we stay on agenda, and extend my sincere gratitude to the presenters, Kiani, Michael, Carl, Nate. You have inspired us. You truly have been our thought leaders. And I think you have left us with more questions and answers, which is a beautiful place to be, because we'll continue to think about the important work that you've done, and we'll continue to follow this important work. So thank you in gratitude for insightful presentations. Margarita, I turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you, Caroline. And what a panel, and what a leader of this panel, because everything counts, and it is a question of collaborative work. And what I'm going to do is to pass directly the leadership to Nate, who will continue this wonderful discussion.
Excellent. Well, we just have a few questions here, and so let's kind of go through those questions, and we'll have some more conversation. And I know that Lewis was wanting to make sure that we have sufficient time to focus on some of these shared leadership items and others. So let's get to it. So the key questions that are in our agenda are the importance of shared leadership, leadership in universities, and leadership and enterprises. And so we kind of want to look at those three questions, and I want to spend a few minutes real quickly here on that first one, shared leadership, and we'll get to each of these. And especially when it comes to university and enterprises, we have some experts here that presented on that, Dr. A and Carl and so many others here that we want to hear from, Kiani. And so we definitely want to get an opportunity to hear from each of them. So let's start with that first question in our agenda, the importance of shared leadership. And as I bring up this kind of area of questions, I want to share 5 different themes with you from a paper that I did last year with JICOM on sharing leadership in the time of a global pandemic. And there is an acronym in that paper that we used, and it goes like this: strengthening relationships, having a clear structure, addressing problems collaboratively, releasing information, and enlisting diverse strengths. And so as we talk about the importance of shared leadership, I'd like to know your thoughts and comments. So this is open to anyone that is here on this today. Tell me, what are you thinking about the importance of shared leadership? And specifically, what does that look like as far as strengthening relationships within the organization? Carolyn, you did a great job yesterday in your presentation, bringing up some of these themes as far as leadership goes. So strengthening relationships, having a clear structure, addressing problems collaboratively, releasing information, and enlisting diverse strengths. If you have any comments in these areas or in any others, or any questions, now's a great time to share those.
Nate, can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. Is this Dr. A?
Yeah. Hi, Nate. How are you?
It's so good to hear your voice, man.
Hey, Nate. My challenge with shared leadership is that what happens when you don't get buy-in from people? Meaning that you're stuck in a situation or an organization where you've got one or two or a few willing leaders that want to practice shared leadership, but most people don't want to have any part of it. They either want to lead as authoritarian leaders, or they prefer authoritarian leaders to lead them. And they don't want to be given responsibility, if you will, of taking the baton and running with it.
Excellent point. And it happens. This definitely happens. So within those pitfalls, we talked about the inherent difficulty of the model. It's much easier just to come to work and do what you were told to do. And sometimes it's harder as a leader to draw in different roles, different strengths, different personalities, and try to help them each contribute in unique ways. And so I would say it's a practice, and it's not necessarily an overnight thing. Our team has been doing this for about 3.5 years, and we're no experts. We are growing each and every day. So we're learning how to grow in different structure issues and other things like that. So I think in maybe, let's say in a setting where it's more formal, like you have a more formal structure that you've used for some time, like always, it's very hard to change culture. And so changing a very top-down structure into a shared leadership structure can be difficult, Dr. A. Brian Robertson of Holacracy talks about this with CEOs. When they transition an organization over to Holacracy, he requires them to be either all in or all out. This is not something you can do halfway. And he allows them the opportunity to revert back to the old way if they're totally not willing to continue with shared leadership. But while they're practicing shared leadership, it's all or nothing. He wants them to dive in feet first, so to say. I think within an organization, we strive to find people's fit. And I've mentioned that a few times. And there are people that are going to be wanting to contribute in that decision-making kind of at that level. They're wanting to be involved in more of the leadership kind of areas. And we want to give them that opportunity. And there are also people that don't want that active role in the organization. They feel a lot more comfortable just doing their to-do list. And we want to respect that as well, but we also want to give them the opportunity to contribute in their particular areas. So for example, one of our design people is an excellent designer, graphic designer, but she does not feel like she wants to contribute in team-wide decisions and things like that. So we want to honor her in that. We want to make sure that she's respected, that she's not forced to step beyond her comfort zones necessarily. But I also want to make sure that she has an opportunity to share her voice. So maybe she's not involved in every single decision, but maybe there are going to be times where she feels strongly about something. And as an organization, we want to hear where she's coming from. We've also tried to push decisions down to roles and to invite roles to hear from the team, but then to be responsible within their role leadership for leading in that role. And then at the organizational level, we have a strategic leadership team. Jesse, who's co-authored with me before, Jesse Dennison is on that team, and Chris Kachuriak, and there are a few different people that are on that shared kind of structure. So I don't know if I answered your question, Dr. A, but I would affirm that yes, it's difficult. Sometimes people don't want to lead, and sometimes people want to be the only person at the top. And trying to force a shared structure onto a traditional hierarchy can be difficult. Culture is always hard to change.
Well, thanks for saying that. I was about to say, so does this relate a lot to organizational culture? And you just mentioned culture.
Yeah, it's a big change if you're trying to bring it into an existing structure. But what you can do as a leader is you can embody this. I would say that to the individual leader. So at the individual leader, you can draw people in. You can do that with your students. You can do that with your coworkers. You can lead collaboratively. Even if the organization sees you as the point person, you can draw others into your decision making. You can draw others in. You can invite their advice, and you can give them a place at the table, and you're empowering them when you do that. So even if the organizational structure hasn't maybe officially changed, you're modeling shared leadership in a way that's going to be transformational down the line, I believe. So,
if I may.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add a comment on to what you said, Nate, and I think your research is really important now because sharing the same aspect on the faith, especially on every type of organization. What you said about the leadership, the shared leadership, is really important, and I think from my perspective that the inability from leaders, especially in my community, the French speaking community, the inability to create a shared leadership is solely based on the emphasizing of the backbone in which the leadership is put in. And it's not only based on Christian organization, it can also be based on university or any type of organization. If the base of the society, the base of the organization is not open to sharing something, it will be very difficult for the leaders to apply some kind of a shared leadership in those organizations. I can use many example. I can use an example in the Christian organization. For example, in the French-speaking community, we do emphasize the top-down leadership. And I can argue with so many of my people. For them, leadership is always top down. They do not emphasize the bottom up or maybe the secular decision making process. It will be the same in the French community of in the university, uh, especially in university, because in the university we tend to distinguish what we call different lives. So we have the personal life, we are the professional life, and we are even a religion life, and we don't try to integrate all this life to make it whole. So we had a certain type of behavior when we are into the university, and we have another type of behavior when we are outside the university. And I can use the example of my university. We had the founder, the dean of our university is a founder. He founded the university, I think, 25 years ago. He's no longer teaching in France. He's teaching in France, in US. And in his opinion, he wants to not only uh, give the legacy of the ability to create a structure to teach and to do research. He wants also to give a value. He wants to share the value on the importance of teaching, and especially in area where there's no such thing as research. And we discussed a lot when I was working on my thesis presentation. And something he said to me is that the majority of the people into our university uh, only focus on their professional life, their careeristic, their career. I mean, they want to be a doctor and then professor and then full professor without leaving something that can be used into the university. And just because of that, they are not able to be integrated or to be part of this sharing leadership. So I think what you said is really important, and I'm really glad you are working on this type of research. What you said about the small amount of research in this type of topic is really true, especially in America, and there's no such topic, no such research in Europe. Like in France, I mean, we don't really talk. Maybe in Denmark, Carl, but I think in
Even
France
in Germany.
we don't really talk about shared leadership. I mean, it doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist because for us, it's like top down leadership, and just after, if the decision is not good, just protesting. Okay. So that was my opinion on what you said. Maybe Carl can argue differently about that.
I do not want to argue differently, but maybe I want to take up what you said and Ned said. And I was thinking about enabling and constraining and change. For example, Fairclough, the guy, with a level of discursive event, discursive practice, and social practice. He has the idea if how can it be that things change nevertheless, right? Sometimes things change. And this is because, sometimes things can start to be changed. So on the one side, I would say, for example, culture, organizational culture, for example, constrains the possibility that you from today to tomorrow can change from an autocratic or charismatic, whatever leader or a Trump type to a shared leadership. But the other way around, it also works. So sometimes it gives people in the position of leadership or management, so they have the potential, at least, that they can change things. For example, you're perfectly right in the academic world, publish or perish, die, publish or die. So, but on the other side, there are examples, and these people still make a living, and they still have a job. They try to change it, and sometimes it works. Maybe an incremental little change, but it might be a big step. So I'm not believing in a deterministic way of looking at organizational culture or even worse, national culture a la Hofstede. That's not my life. Then I could buy me a gun and hang me with a gun instead of a rope, right? So change is possible. Sometimes it's hard to change a little bit, but it's no excuse. And I appreciate, Elias, that you tried at least to convince your supervisor, who it was, the dean or who it was, that maybe we can think in other ways. And that leads me back to the concept of community of practice and discourse communities. They constrain what we can talk about, how we can talk about, but they also give the opportunity sometimes to challenge what is seen as the so-called normal, if it is the old normal or the new normal. And discourse analysis can help you to investigate this process of normalization or naturalization. So the way we do it, that's the natural way. This is nonsense. This is a social construction that we call it the natural way. If it is in Greece, or if it is in France, or if it is in Denmark. And by the way, Denmark is not the paradise.
Yeah, Carolyn, I know that you had your hand up, and yesterday as you spoke, I couldn't help but see through the lens of shared leadership, but so much of what you shared came back to this theme. Carolyn, I'd love to hear any comments that you might have on this, if that's possible.
She disconnected, maybe she will connect back. I saw she's no longer here. I think she disconnected by mistake. Maybe she will come back after.
Excellent. Well, I know that.
I don't think she's going to connect back on because she's been on from late in Canada.
Yeah, I think she has said goodbye in the chat, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
She
has,
said yeah. She has. Yeah,
Margarita, will you let her know that we wanted to hear her comments, just so that she doesn't feel? I know she had her hand up, and I don't want her to feel like she wasn't heard.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, but I would like to add one more thing because Mike talked about it is a matter of organizational culture, but I want to go even further based on my research. It's more on the what we call institutional matter, and I have a strong definition from the author mobilizing. I was actually writing a comment about that. For this author, institutions are basically the norm and the dogma that allow people in the society to interact. And I think this is the sole base of a society. If those institutions allow people to share their opinion, I think the shared leadership can be implied in university or even organization. And I would like to use another example. I'm working on my thesis because I work on Japanese organization. So they talk about sharing, but this is not sharing leadership. They talk about share responsibility. So to them, in order for the company to thrive to success, they allow people in the organization to add their opinion in decision-making process, so that if the company have a success, the success will be for all the people, and if the company is going into a failure, the failure will also be collective. But something really intriguing about Japanese company is that uh, when they talk about sharing, it's not what about when they talk about collective, it's not about leadership, because they still have a leader, they still have like the founder or the family that found the company above the company that dictate the way, or that kind of orient the way the company should go. And when it comes to the practical application of this direction, now the sharing process, the sharing leadership, but I said the share responsibility will apply. So what you said is really important because we need also to differentiate share leadership and share responsibility. Share leadership is not share responsibility, and I argue with a lot of my peers when it comes to Japanese organization that we tend to mingle these two terms, and it is important to really emphasize that these are two different concepts.
Yeah, Louis, absolutely right. Leadership has to do with influence, whereas responsibility may be less so at some point. So sharing leadership is a lot more sharing influence than just responsibilities that one might have. And inviting people to influence the organization. The Great Commission Alliance, that's our organization, and it's been my personal dream to launch this for since 2004. And so when we launched, I had the choice: do I launch as the director, or do we launch as a shared leadership organization? And I was convinced the organization will succeed better if it's shared. And so we launched that way. But I do not have the final say. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a disagreement with two of the other co-directors, and we went with their perspectives on something, and I'm happy to do it. I think the organization will be stronger. And this works cross-culturally. There's an organization, a church I know in a very sensitive part of the world. They're definitely a minority that is often persecuted in that part of the world. And the church, I was absolutely astonished to see this, but they started with a shared model, and they've grown to more than 2,000 in size in this very interesting setting. And Margarita, I would love to do a study on this organization at some point. What's fascinating to me is they're in a culture that has a very, very high power distance. If you're familiar with Geert Hofstede's cultural analysis. And they have a very large demographic of expat workers in that area that are also from predominantly high power distance cultures. And what strikes me so much is that in this high power distance culture, they've experienced tremendous success with a shared model. And I was shocked to see this. And I'm trying to get into the organization a little bit and understand how are they doing something so cross and countercultural to invite this sharing. But maybe that's a topic for a different time. I know we have a couple other questions here, but there are people that we haven't heard from yet. Sophie, I know that you've presented. I know you have some thoughts on all this. Kiani, even on workplace burnout, how might this affect workplace burnout? Others that maybe we haven't heard from yet, Elpida or Giro, you had a question, but maybe you have comments on this. I would just love to open this up before we move to the next question to anybody that might have comments or questions.
I'll share a little bit. Regarding workplace burnout, I believe that the shared leadership would be beneficial to it because different leaders and different leadership styles would help to understand the staff that you have or the employees, because then you'll know what their particular needs are and what strategies will work to motivate them. So it will be beneficial for a lot of organizations to use this type of style of leadership.
Excellent point. And there, it might be a topic for a future study, but there's there is some research in that area too about burnout and commitment levels and things like that related to shared leadership. All right. Anyone else before we move on to the next question?
Nate?
Yeah.
I was about to write a comment on another organization you can look for if you want to analyze the shared leadership. So the church is called God Embassy. It's a church located in Kiev, Ukraine, and it's one, if not the biggest, a church organization in Europe. It was founded by a Nigerian pastor. So an immigrant from Nigeria. He came from Nigeria at Ukraine. At the time, Ukraine was a USSR a country. He fought with the Freedom Liberator against the KGB. And when he decided to found his church, 90% of the church is Ukraine based, and he has a model of leadership that is really close to what you are actually writing on. His name is Sunday Adelaja. I will find all the links, and I will give you all the links on the chat. And I think you can reach him. He's really reachable, because the power distance you talk about on between him, the leader, and the volunteer is really thin. Is really close to all his congregation, and it even empowers them to become leaders. It really focus also on the leadership in churches in general, and also the influence of leaders in the political instance. So I will give you all the links. Maybe you can reach him. He's really reachable, and you try to contextualize and cross research between the American part and the European parts.
That would be absolutely fascinating, and I look forward to it. I want to move on to the next question, and you're welcome to think about shared leadership here, but there are definitely some other things to consider in this. So let's go ahead and move on to leadership and universities. Remember Dr. A's presentation on teaching in the age of a modern pandemic, and just everything else that we've heard today. I want to ask about leadership and universities and all the different questions we're discussing. What are some comments or questions that you might have? Maybe you have more questions for Dr. A based on his presentation, maybe more comments on leadership at the university level. I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions.
I know when I was presenting, I was getting a lot of acknowledgement from some of my fellow educators. I was talking about New York, and New York is such a small area in a very large country. I'm curious to know about some of the issues that some of our fellow educators are experiencing around the world. If any of you would care to share, it would really be enlightening to me. And for everyone else, I'm sure.
If I may?
Yes, please.
I think there are two reflections. Number one, we are the leaders and not our president at the university or our head of the department. Number two, especially when it comes to students. Number two, that it's very, very important to be visible, to be in the same, it should be timely, but not necessarily placely, because it might be not that we share physically the place to be visible, but it's very important for at least the evaluations of my students or not my students, of the students of our team doing a course on media and communication. It was very important that they had the feeling we were there if they needed us. They didn't need us actually when it came to the point, but having this kind of an idea, he is interested in our situation. And I asked, as you did, as you also presented yesterday. I asked the students about the situation and how they cope with it and what we could do. And especially in supervision, I hate the word supervision. I would call it advising, maybe, or even something else, showing the way, helping to find them the way. So vejledning in Danish. So there, I at the end of every session, I asked 3 questions. First one, what have you learned in school today? What do you take with you from this session for your project? Number 2, what is the next concrete step that you are going to undertake in 3 hours, latest tomorrow, concerning the project? And the third one was, how could we improve the meetings when they are digital? But the funny thing is, I asked the same questions face to face. Of course, not digital. Then I asked, how should we change the meetings? I don't know if this is has anything to do with leadership. At least it has to do something with sharing responsibility. And being open and saying, we are building the ship when the ship is sailing, and we can only build the ship together with you. And suddenly we got not only very, very good evaluations, but we got a response rate that we never had before.
I want to ask Kiani. Kiani, I know you work with Dr. A. I don't know all the details of that work, but I'm thankful that you presented today. I'm thankful that you're a part of this organization and this family. And I'd love to hear any thoughts you might have on leadership at the university or the academic level, especially in a time of pandemic and chaos.
I'm not sure about the leadership on the university level because I'm just a student, but I know in terms of being a student that it is, for me, it's very important when the professor or leader provides the support or the motivation, because sometimes as a student you get overwhelmed. And when you get to the graduate level, a lot of times you think that you're supposed to be like perfect or know a lot, but you still are learning. And I give it to Dr. A because he reminds me a lot of times that I am a student. I'm here to learn, and he allowed me to ask him questions and get that support at times that I really needed it. And he motivated me to do a lot of things that I didn't think that I could do. So if more professors took that approach, I believe more students would get through their studies and accomplish the goal of graduating.
I think that's pretty valuable advice on leading in the time of a pandemic or in the hurricane of the pandemic. Margarita, dear Margarita, you work with academics the world over. I haven't heard from you yet. How can leadership at the universities, especially in time of pandemic, be done well so that students like Kiani can succeed even in difficult circumstances?
Well, thank you, Nate. As you see, I prefer to listen more than speaking because this is how I learn. So this is very important. What Caroline has said at the first day at the workshops as well. But what I would say is that Dr. A, as you call him, and I might start calling him now, so he's in trouble. No, I will continue to call him Michael. He's who he is. He's simple, he's calm, he's what we expect a leader to be at this time. So taking his example, because I could take your example, I could take Carl's example, because we are all leaders somehow, somewhere, all speaking of even my 6 years old son or my 5 years old daughter, they are leader somehow, somewhere, so they should learn what is the best approach. And we don't learn it, as you said, we cannot learn by the book. We should adapt and we should share with others. And what I do and what I like to do is to get the opinions of all the people around me, and then we take a collective decision. Of course, one should take the responsibility if there is something in stake, but hearing everybody is very important, and the empathy for me is very important. And then we adapt, we make mistakes, and we learn. We know one thing, that we know nothing, and we always adapt and we try to become better. We are only human beings and we make mistakes.
Excellent points. And yeah, we've been through an interesting time of adapting, and hopefully the lessons, I think Carolyn mentioned it at the end of her session yesterday, we're not going back to normal because normal wasn't working, right? So some of what we've learned in this pandemic are some of these essential practices that you're describing. And I hope that we bring these out and do better as a result of it. So does anyone else have anything on this topic of leadership at the university level? And maybe even specifically, I know a question that Dr. A, as we're affectionately referring to him today, brought up was just the way students during this pandemic time have not been involved because of the digital nature at the level that they might have otherwise. Many are distracted with technology, social media, whatever it might be, when they could be on video calls like this. Does anyone have anything that they found that works to draw those students in? How can we engage those students and lead them to successful education outcomes in a context that's pretty dynamic and different? So, Louis has raised hand. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, just flip the model. I mean, this will be my, I guess, 5 years, my 5th year of teaching in my uni, and I was pretty blessed this year to have a class when I just changed the model of teaching, because we do have a certain fixed dogma of teaching in my culture in France. And the fact that I was able to open the conversation and to uh, implicitly tell them that I'm learning from you. If you have any opinion on how the world is going now, feel free to share your opinion, and we can try to uh, work our courses, our syllabus together. I'm open to it. The only thing I was really strict on was the methodology, because the methodology do not change. But when it comes to the content, we can always evolve. We can always, change the content. We don't need to do the whole, teaching as a keynote. We can insert a new element in the teaching process. And I was pretty much blessed by the return from the student. And I love to say that because we are, I think, 40 teachers in my uni, and usually we had a class of 20 to 70 students the whole year. So my main courses in marketing, strategy marketing and stuff, have like 70 students, and I was really surprised each classes to have the whole 70 students each classes in Zoom. I mean, they were like here every day, the whole classes for like 3 hours, because we try to construct something together. And I was also blessed because most of these students, they were like searching in which area of management they want to study in. And I think 90% of the students went to marketing because I teach marketing. And
Wow.
every time the responsible for the teaching formation ask what is your main courses or the courses you like the most, pretty much everyone said marketing. So I think it is important to flip the model. Don't stay on the fixed model. Try to integrate more idea from the people. And this is also something we teach in marketing, because we are evolved from a perspective where the client is the king to a perspective in which the client can be also the employee. It can bring something in order to create a more integrate a product in which engagement will be involved, in which emotion will be involved, in which even evangelism will be involved. So I think it is important to flip the model. Just don't stay in the same, keynote and try to be more open to everything a student can propose to you.
Collaboration and co-creation, I've heard it said. Excellent point. And thank you again for those thoughts. Begum Barak, we have a great comment from you. And if you'd like to share that, you're welcome to, or I could read it.
Yes, I may read if you want.
Yeah.
I think the world is changing in a very quick way in terms of technology. Also, the economic structure is changing. As a result of globalization, the world has become like a global village, and almost everyone is interconnected. So I think that the teaching professionals maybe should follow such developments a bit faster than the students, because it's really important to catch all of these quick transformation in order to have an efficient education system, I think. Thank you.
Excellent point about being ahead of the curve. Carl, you look like you have one more question here.
Just a very short comment, right? So I agree on all what is said about the role being ahead with the technological development, being ahead of maybe the students sometimes, and so on and so forth. But there is a danger that we are going to be reduced if we are not very conscious about it, that we are going to be reduced to content producer. That's not our job. So it's not about making the best MOOC, big lectures, entertaining, standing on the head or on the hand instead of the feet, and so on and so forth. We are not good enough to that. YouTubers are much better. So we are not, please do not have the impression that you have to be the best content generator in the world. That's not our job. At the end, it's the students that should generate the content together with us. And we should help them to develop in the zone of development where they can develop, and not entertain them or not once more top down. And that, of course, is in the same alley as Luis already was talking about. So learning, not teaching, learning, facilitating learning is not being the best content producer. Maybe a good content manager is enough.
Excellent point. Yeah, learning to draw them in. I loved your comments on that, Luis, and you highlighting that, Carl. Margarita, you've just shared a great comment that kind of ties a lot of this together, that what we do today is collaborative. A remote event every event needs collaboration to become successful. It needs shared leadership from all the participants. I agree. Before we transition to the last question, Dr. A, Michael, if you're there, you're the expert here. You wrote this paper and you have so much experience. Do you have any last thoughts on this topic of leadership at the university level? And oh, and then 1 minute. And then I want to hear from our Guido also, because I see a hand up. So, Doctor.
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to say about that is that, you know, leadership is leadership, and it's really important for all of us in all the positions that we serve our constituencies, whether it be as professors, as school administrators, our regular jobs. It's really important that we understand that our concepts and the way that we approach things translate throughout pandemics, throughout any other issues that are happening. What it does is it brings out, you know, what it is that we do best, and it's really important that we hold on to that. That's why I'm well aware of the issues that I face, and I think people around the world are going through similar issues, but I stay strong to what I believe in and what I know has worked for me for the last 10, 20 years. And I see the results in my students. I truly get the best out of them as much as I can. Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes, but I'm okay with the challenge. And I think we should all be okay with the challenge. And that's all I wanted to say with that.
Excellent, excellent points. Arturo.
Yes, well, very, very fast. I would like to say that I can relate very much to what Michael shared with us today and yesterday, because I teach at an American college, so it's an American approach to education. I'm a leader in my own respect, being the program coordinator of a graduate program. It's the master's degree in strategic communication and public relations. So I have about 80 students per year. And a number of, faculty professors. So what I try to do is to cope with the new challenges, and not just on the technological aspect, because that was something that we were able to do in a matter of a few days, to do the training. So I agree with Carl, so that it's something much bigger than this. So what I tried to do from a leadership point of view was to not just to become more available, not to be there, but to become also a mentor, to shift to other roles, to develop other aspects of my own personality by being there and being collaborative, being, I shouldn't use the term transformation here, but it's all about also transformational leadership. To the extent that we can be successful about this. So a lot of effort, and I think we managed well, coping with the anxiety of the pandemic, and in several aspects, because I also teach, I'm not just an administrator, I use my lectures also in a different way, not just uploading the regular content, but to stimulate students, to engage them in thinking philosophically, thinking about other aspects of life, even sharing poems, poetry about the crisis in a crisis management class, not just teaching Timothy Coombs, for instance, a 3-stage approach, but also sharing some of my poems, because I'm also a writer, so I love. So this is what I'm trying to say, becoming more humane and becoming much closer to our students. And I think developing our emotional intelligence. So this is something that we learn from leadership classes. So it's both emotional intelligence and cultural literacy, because I have a group of students who come from different parts of the world. Even Greek students who come from Greek public universities are different when they're placed into an American educational environment. And I think we did fairly well. We did very well. So yes, the challenges are here, but these challenges are also opportunities to learn and to grow. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, excellent points. All right, well, we have a few minutes, maybe 6 minutes, and we have one more question. Leadership and Enterprises. Dr. Karl-Heinz Pogner's presentation on leadership, innovation, and urban governance touches on some of this, right? And again, Ms. Kiani McFadden's presentation on workplace burnout, preventing that burnout. Remember their presentations as you comment on this last theme, leadership and enterprises. Is there anyone that hasn't had a chance to share yet that would like to? We'd love to hear from you. And if there's anyone else that would like to share, we'd love to hear from you. Leadership at the business or at the enterprise level, especially.
Just one comment, as I said earlier, share leadership is different from share responsibility, because in company we tend to mix both aspects, especially in a big multinational corporation, when they try to kind of engage employee to be part of the what they call the bigger picture in the company. But every time they try to integrate this type of responsibility, they always, when the crisis come, go back to their leadership, as a founder. And I saw this in my research, especially in Japanese companies, as I said, when the COVID just hit, they went back to the old basis, we are the founder of the company, we are the family that found the company. So depending on the COVID situation and depending on how we should go, we will decide as a company to go that way. And I think this is one of the many examples that prove that in company we still looking to understand what is shared leadership and what is shared responsibility.
Excellent, excellent point. Yeah, sometimes there's the tendency for the leader to pull back that control rather than actually inviting true collaboration and input, even when it maybe doesn't feel comfortable for the leader. Maybe we have time for one last short comment or question or answer. Anybody have, what's that? Carl, let's hear. Why don't you?
I always have one.
That's okay. We love learning from you.
So I think we should not only talk about, I would like to talk about, instead of enterprises, to talk about organizations. Because for me, it's the public sector is as important. The NGOs are as important, and they also have organizations or partial organizations. But my point actually is, it would be interesting to get away from the old idea of an organization as an island, an isolated island, and having more a networked idea, a cluster idea, and then look at cooperation, collaboration, networks. And actually some enterprises are networks and not in the old sense, a brick and mortar organization somewhere with an organigram. And the second point is, organizations is not the same as the organigram. Without communication, no organization. So where it happens is primarily in the communication. The organization is constituted. That, at least, this is my humble opinion. And it worked as a lens for research.
Excellent. Well, Margarita, we've come to the end of this session, and I'm overjoyed by all that I learned from each of you and just all your comments. And we've been through a hard year, a hard couple of years now. But in the midst of it all, we're growing, we're changing, we're developing, we're learning new tools, we're learning new strategies, and collaboration is, I think, an essential part of the future. Margarita, thank you for always highlighting that here at the Communications Institute of Greece and the Journal of Education, Innovation, Communication, and Management. With that, Margarita, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everybody. While you were speaking, I was listening. Of course, I was doing 10 other things, but I was listening carefully. So a final thing maybe to say, I have written it down. We are all leaders. First of all, leaders of ourselves, the directors of our life script. Where we are, or we should be, the protagonist of this play, our play. Let this leader, each time leading his, her different roles, be the best possible version and lead, inspired by his, her examples, his, her action. So actions, not words. We have 1,000 months to live, maybe more, maybe less, who knows? Let's live this life to share positivity, inspiration, and love. So thank you so much for being here. I'm inspired. The truth is I was afraid of remote, but I find it equivalently sharing. I mean, I have taken a lot today and I thank you for this. I am calling everybody who maybe is not a member of the community and would like to become, since we met and we share the main concept of things, contact us. We will be very glad to be inspired by you and inspire you. Our appointment for tomorrow, I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And I wish that everybody has taken a little bit of positivity, knowledge, and love from our wonderful conference today.
Thank you, Margarita, and see you tomorrow.
So bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Luis. This is perfect. Thank you so much. I am very emotional now. I'm very